logo. Going into the red game, which will decide it.
Yep.
I'm the red player for chosen Gizelhart, and the deck I've picked is Stained Swindler. It's a 4 horseman deck, so I figured that a deck that should always win is a deck that everyone wanted at some point in their life. So that's kind of the reason I picked the 4 horsemen. And in theory, everyone loses against the 4 horsemen. I've tried my deck and I've looked at my opponent's deck. It looks okay to me, other than it's obviously going to be much faster than mine, so it's much speedier. But I think I've got creature power, so I should be able to dominate the board and hopefully keep things at bay. So that's the theory, is if I can cycle the horsemen in the right order and they can come back for a second helping, then hopefully they'll do the trick. Yeah, key charge is always the worrying one. I'm not really too worried about much else. I know Eddie's there and it's got the ability to archive a fair bit, but I've got a good amount of creature power. What worries me is the one I can't say, Discombobulator on Automatron, or let me check what it was called, the self-bolstering Automatron. That's going to be very damaging if I can't get my shadow stealing early in the game. No, I'll let the horseman
My
do
name
the
is
talking.
Adam. I'm from the Nifl's Tricity team. We are friends from Poland, from Tricity down on the north, where we have some community around 10, 12 people playing regularly. So we decided on the first KOTE to try. Then on the second and third we have 2 or 3 teams, and we try to have at least one team at each KOTE event. So at this point, I think we managed this. We are just a group of friends, so we play. We have the chance to play weekly a tournament with 3 rounds. So in these times, it's quite good. But we also try to play on TCO. Of course, not everyone likes it. I have to say that I play on Crucible with some hesitation because I prefer face-to-face matchups. But from time to time, I'm trying to get in TCOs because, of course, there's much more chance to play on this website than in the real world. And for my deck, in our meta, I am known for playing unorthodoxly. I like to play the decks which are considered worse or in some way lacking, but I love to make my opponent think a little when I do not play any creatures. So, especially on this deck, it may be possible as it has 2 Fangtooth Caverns, and as I mentioned, due to my love to this card of this card, the name of the card is changed in our little meta because I almost exclusively try to play with caverns. The more the better. A little, yes, not too many. I don't like horseman decks, but we'll see. And also shadows and its stealing is quite scary. But I have some tricks up my deck sleeve. I hope it will come to the board and will make his life a little more difficult. No, not particularly. I am trying to be a friendly player, and I, if I get to smack talk anyone, I have to do it face to face. So that's more like MMA style than going over.
Okay, and now moving to the red matchup here, we have, and I did get the Google Translate for this as well.
So I'm
Scavenger.
going to preface this with the Stained Swindler is the deck that we need to acquire simply because of the name.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Swindlers. I mean,
Call us, yeah.
let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, so your deck is the Scavenger, and I do not know how to say the name, but to give you a little bit of personality on the deck. And I'm sure that the logos will just be nothing of note, so go on.
It looks so slow. No, I love this deck. Quite frankly. This looks fantastic. The triple Tau, Wild Wormhole, Daughter, like
Oh
this
my
is
god.
two Titan Guardians is just like who if you're getting those to work, great. Otherwise, who cares? You've got so much speed. It's just going to be lightning fast. And I love the double Fangtooth in Untamed, by the way. I know there's so much other stuff to talk about, but I just keep looking at it, and I love that kind of removal. I love playing with that kind of removal because like the more that you play with this kind of deck, the more that you know how to play with a double Fangtooth. Eventually, they just can't populate the board at all. But in a scenario where like you're ghost hawking into some like other Saurian and logo stuff, like that just is icing on the cake. I think the Saurian's also fantastic. City Gates. I don't know what you exile. That's what I've been looking at. I'm like, what do you want to exile here? Probably the Quester Jarda. If you get a bunch of amber on it, you just give it to the other player and say that's your problem now. After you've reaped with it a bunch. But the double Scudum, the Calipigian Ideal, Library of Paulosaurus. So like a lot of that amber is just it's gonna come to your pool anyways. You probably don't need to worry about exiling anything too crazy.
Yeah, the exile is meh.
Yeah, there's no target for it. There's no Crassosaurus where you're like, haha,
yeah,
10 amber is mine.
But I mean, I'll let you go to the Untamed, but there is actually, you know, I'll just jump in just for a second if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is the Automata with the Ideal. You're going to be able to City Gates onto it, and you can't destroy it, and you're going to spend it.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's right.
That's absolutely busted. Like,
yeah, and you know, depending, and like I'm anticipating that this will be a tough board to play around simply because of the double Fangtooth, and you know they've got Thorian Plaza. They got like a little bit of removal, but like they're just gonna have these big creatures. I mean, you have two Titan Guardians and logos with taunt like that. Creatures next to them aren't really going anywhere unless you have some good sort of spot removal. And the Discombobulator, which to look ahead and see that you have a Shadows house that very much wants to steal, that like low key is going to be like the MVP of the game.
Right. And then when you're Fangtoothing, you can always hit your own Automata.
Right, and then you're just bouncing it back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, but or at least you can do it for quite some time to avoid some bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it saves your line. I mean, that's just such a fantastic combination to have an Automata of either kind, the reassembling or the self-bolstering. Yeah, Fangtooth, it's great.
And then, what do you think about the Untamed?
So the rest of the Untamed, I mean, you have a key charge, which is always great to have. Cauldron Boils kind of leaves something to be desired, only because you don't have a ton of. I mean, you have the Plasmate. That's kind of it.
Right.
I can tell. Trying to think what you would Creative Nurture in this deck.
Sorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
You can also do some weird stuff like turning something into a Titan Guardian, or and then popping it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Ghost Hawk? No, that wouldn't work. Never mind.
Right. But there are options. I mean, you could even like. Oh, I guess Redder. That would be something. He's worth 3.
Right.
3 more when you need to. Yeah, it's low-key not bad. I mean, the Ghost Hawk and the Mermoop are great. Double Tantalon, it's not horrible. I mean, if they don't have removal, they'll just stick to the board, and then, you know, if they're trying to archive stuff or whatever, you have an answer. But
and everything else is going to get Fangtoothed.
Right, and you don't love to see 2 Tantalons, but that's also true. You have a 9-power creature that isn't going to get Fangtoothed for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited I'm sorry I jumped in during your spiel, but I'm so excited about the self bolstering with the Calipingian Ideal and the city and the city gates. So it's like you can capture one onto it. You can get it exalted with the sorrow. There's a couple different like little sneaky ways to use it to just get a little bit on. And
yeah, but that being said, if you can Scudum and Ideal onto a Jarda or a Gallum, and then every turn you're just putting Amber on it, and it's just sticking to the board, like that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and the Tricerian being a nice kind of taunter. So yeah, let's look at the Swindler here, the Stained Swindler, and then we'll get to the matchup as far as how this is going to play. I'm really excited to kind of think about the interaction of these decks, so I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, but all right, so we've got Loot the Bodies and a Brobnar that very, very much just Brobnars, right? Like, it's just fighting. It's fantastic. There's not like a ton to say about it in a certain way, right? Like you're going to loot the bodies and gain advantage. You're going to Screech Bomb and lose 2. Gengar's going to be able to ready and fight. And that's going to all work in tandem with this massive Sanctum, which again, Brobnar plus Sanctum in low SAS is just so good. Because you just put so much effective power on the board. And there's only going to be so many responses to board in low SAS. You've got the Zakiel in Sanctum, so you're constantly ready and fighting. Horsemen, you know, take them or leave them, but they're still big bodies on the board in terms of like being good Sanctum creatures. So you just see those two houses working really, really nicely together, honestly, in order to just get a nice board domination.
Oh yeah.
So the game plan of this deck in general is Brobnar and Sanctum, keep your board empty. Shadows will negate any extra Amber Rush that you kind of have with the 4 Relentless Whispers and the Nerve Blast and the Miasma. So it's kind of just beat down, beat down, beat down, and then you're trying to play your pips, and your pips don't matter, right? So it's a really, really cohesive unit as a deck, just as yours is. But I really, really like just kind of how, you know, like how transparent, clear, and cohesive the kind of game plan of the deck is, right? Like nothing sneaky about it.
Yeah. I love the Relentless Whispers plus the Bad Pennies because you can just kill them to steal.
Right.
Great. Because I do feel like elsewhere there aren't a ton of obvious things in the Scavenger that you would kill. I guess the Daughter is just prime real estate for that.
Against yours, yeah.
Yeah, and the Ghost Hawk.
And like, you know,
Sure.
yeah, just anything that you can. But yeah, no, obviously, yeah, the play in this deck is that you always have the Bad Penny, which is always nice. The speed obviously isn't there. So again, we have just like in the previous matchup, I guess we'll get to those matchup specifics. We've got a very consistent deck being brought by Gizelharts Chosen that has a like nice game plan, all the cards work together, versus just absolutely explosive speed. And I'm a little bit unsure of how that'll turn out. And do you have any like, yeah?
I feel like this would be the game that I would want to watch most of the 3, because this one has the most potential to just be absolutely wild. Like it could just be crazy. I think it's not just speed. Like 3 Tata Vapors, it's like every time they're going logos, they're drawing 2, which feels pretty crazy. And yeah. I also feel like they're going to have so much Amber on the board. Not that your deck can't deal with it, but they're going to have so much on the board with 2 Scudums that they might not care so much about getting to 6 right away, because they're going to find ways to spend their Amber and move it to their pool on scoring turns and stuff like that.
So here's my kind of bold call on it. I actually like the Swindler better in this matchup. And the reason is, I don't think that you can board me, which is going to negate the Automata play.
Right.
Even with the speed, I don't think that you can board me. The double Fangtooth is a thing, but my creatures are also large. You will have control over it. Neither of us has artifact removal. You might even end up in a situation where you don't want to play them, which is something to think about. But I know the speed is crazy, but I just stick by my game plan with the Sustained Swindler. I try to keep your board clean. I make sure that you can't get the automata like in a permanent state of affairs. I feel very confident that I'm going to be able to kind of fight down the board unless I get totally high rolled on.
I actually think the Swindler has a problem.
Okay.
Because the Shadows House, those 4 Relentless Whispers, like your hands are going to get clogged. And it's not to say that they don't play them anyways to just move stuff off the board, but or just put damage on stuff. But like I think the Stained Swindler is going to have some very clogged hands, and they're going to have to just play things, whereas Scavenger is going to be able to kind of fix what they got going on and get things set up in a much more robust way, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's another way to kind of state that like the speed is going to just do so much.
Right.
But I know I totally agree that like, okay, like let's say you're like getting your Taos and like maybe even connecting them. The Titan Guardians do have some degree of board. I'm trying to just imagine this like whole thing happening. Like you said, like this is the one that you would most want to watch, as far as being unpredictable. But I think ultimately, despite your speed, you like desperately need board in order to win this game. Am I kind of incorrect? You can't really rush me, right? I mean, like actually look at the cards. There's not that much amber.
There's not a ton of printed amber. I think though, if you're clearing the board, like they're getting the Fangtooths down, and then they don't really need. I mean, they kind of need a board. I totally see what you're saying. That's interesting.
Yeah. No, I can totally see this as a 50-50. I just think that I'd rather go slow and have a kind of coherent game plan, because I really do think if you can't get the automata down, you have like no amber control. And not that mine is like this massive amber generation machine, right? But 4 Relentless Whispers is going to negate your kind of like any amber generation tempo that you have if you can't start essentially stealing from me with the city gates kind of play.
Right. Yeah, although I will say that there is a scenario in which where they're able to play, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 creatures and capture 5 at once, kind of.
How so?
Or not? I'm sorry. Not. I was thinking of a Disposal Battle. No, but City Gates. City Gates will be slower, basically, if they're not building a board. You're right.
Yeah. But also, like, all these cards become useless if I can dominate board. Except for the Fangtooths.
Although, I still think the board domination, like, it can be real with Sanctum and with Brobnar. But even Brobnar, there are some things that I think will be kind of slow.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a ton of creatures. They have 5-ish, 6 creatures, something like that. This would be interesting. It's almost like if they can very quickly hit some of their speed stuff, I think that they still control the game, even though the board does seem super important.
Yeah, no, I think, it's like if you can kind of high roll and go faster than me, then I don't have a ton of response, but all the readying and fighting. But I still think I go Stained Swindler in this matchup. So like we've talked about the decks, we've got the kind of matchup specifics, we have the prediction of the outcome that we were kind of going for. Can you quickly pull up how these actually went? Like, why not?
I can, yes.
Okay, and I'll pull up the deck. So we'll start with the captain matchup here. We were a 50-50 on this. I went with Astios. You were saying that
I went with
Cassia.
And it looks like the Baroness won.
Oh.
I am so curious to know how, though. Because like I said, I would rather play East. Like I'd rather pilot Astios, because that's kind of the pilot I am. But that's fascinating.
All right, and then moving quickly to the blue, how did we turn out?
So what did we say was going to happen for blue? Okay, so blue,
Oak 6, there's no way it loses, right?
it lost.
No way!
Yes, Gizelharts Chosen won the blue game.
That's kind of unbelievable to me. But again, we did talk about the tempo negation in the Sanctum,
Right.
and then you said that those hands are rather average if you're not high rolling. So another one to you. And the red matchup, maybe I called something right. So I called the Swindler.
You called the Swindler, and the Swindler lost.
No!
Smrodyle Tricity won the red game.
Oh, man. So it's a 3-0.
That game, I'm convinced that game would have to go down to the wire. It would have to be like last play key charge kind of stuff.
Do you have the keys on that?
Let me see if I can find the results.
Let's say if we don't have the keys like right away, like, it's cool. But it's just yeah, I'm surprised that it was that lopsided based on the decks that we're looking at.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get keys, but
Okay.
I'm surprised too. I mean, especially the double Battlefleet deck losing. That's the game I'd actually, in hindsight, be most curious to see like what happened.
Oh wait, it was not a 3-0 then. It was a 2-1, and then yeah, so it's like they won their unfavorable matchup
Yes.
and then lost 2 matchups that we would at least consider attainable.
50-50, yeah.
So yeah, the captain matchup with Istios and Barons. It's I mean,
But it's like at Oak 6 the
That's not, is it?
No, that's fine. There you go.
So just jump forward here, guys, to not give it all away. So here
Yeah,
we come
sorry,
in.
I missed out on the ending of that there to see how that was of their actual commentary. I didn't think they'd actually spoil the ending of the game. Sorry about that for those, but we see double Fangtooth coming down very early on, very nicely done. Able to wipe the board, and this is going to completely change the way that Helix is going to be playing.
I mean, Fangtooth turn was actually turn 1. I mean,
Essentially
that,
turn one.
double Fangtooth. I mean, at that.
The bad penny into the whispers into discarded bad penny, and basically boards don't matter here. Pestilence plays war with an inspiration. Creatures can only fight this turn, which means inspiration is completely wasted here. Helix unfortunately makes a rookie error. Hate to see it. Loot the bodies comes down with no kind of support. And we see now we've got Automaton in hand, we've got 2 Titan Guardians, a Telltale Vapors, and a Plasmate. And Tantadillin being 9 power is beautifully to have down. Might just get a Reap. So Helix is head in Amber, but we're not going to see a hell of a turn in logos here. No. Interesting. Cauldron Boil.
I think he wants to.
Go on.
He wants to clear the deck. He will clear the board, I think.
He wants to clear the board because I've just realised that once that Automaton comes down, those Fangtooths are just going to keep destroying it each turn, which means that Helix is going to be able to start creating a board.
Mm-hmm.
You want to play the Automaton when you've got cards like Discombobulator, and you've got ways to limit your opponent with. Then you can put down cards like Ideal. Plays Plasmate doesn't do anything. Plays Telltale Vapors, draws a Telltale Vapors. Archives Saurian card. Plays Telltale Vapors, draws another Telltale Vapors. What?
You can't make it up.
That's 3 Telltale Vapors in 1 turn. Titan Guardian. Group Think Tank. Then drops the Automaton. The Automaton coming down is key here. Ideal in hand. There is nothing in Helix's hand that can take care of this Automaton. Doesn't play Loot the Bodies, which is a weird one, but okay. So now Helix can start establishing a board, but there we go. We see Ideal come down. Then we see Reality Gleam increasing key costs.
No, he's going to die in a minute.
No, nothing's going to die.
Oh, no, because they don't happen at the same time, do they? Yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's another creature down, Automaton is indestructible, so the boards can now start building.
Yeah. I thought it was they were at the same time, but no, they're not.
Yeah. Use his library to take the Amber from Titan Guardian, reaps with the Reach the automaton, and now we see automaton with 2 amber on it with ideal, which means that amber can be used off automaton to forge.
Oh man, that's such an awesome combo.
Yeah, and then there is an Imperial Schism and an Exile. Exile, not that big of an issue here. Not really anything to put amber on. But we're going to see the Imperial Schism probably go on the Rialto. No, put Imperial Schism on Quest Jar, I guess that makes sense. City Gates onto it. Uses the City Gates to capture 2 onto Heriso, then fights Raptor into Heriso to get the amber back. Goes up to 13.
15.
15 now with the extra reap.
Plus 17
extra
if you count the 2 on the automaton.
18 with the 2.
18, yeah, 18.
Because he's put, and that is just absolutely madness. So this automaton is not going to be able to reap. It's not going to be able to fight. It's not going to be able to do anything. But it is because of these factors. But it is essentially a vault of amber. Plates through somebody, gets rid of Quest Jato, which isn't really going to do anything. Raptor's still down, and we see the first forge come in. Doesn't use any amber off the automaton. That is how confident it is. And now we see a handful of shadows with 3 steals, and the discombobulator goes onto the automaton, which means Nerve Blast, Urchin, and Relentless Whispers are all dead for their main purpose. E9 comes down. This is a brutal game. We do see a forge from Helix, but the shadows got hit. Nerve Blast doesn't do anything. And he's just... I think he hadn't noticed the discombobulator when he played the Nerve Blast. Relentless Whispers plays the Silvertooth, Reap with the Silvertooth, and then we see the blue key coming in. It's going to be 3 turns with 3 forge because there's enough amber to forge. Solely what's on here. Reaps. He's going to exile the Real to Gleam to fight with the Raptor. Reap with the Legionary, and then put an Imperial Scuttle down because he can. And he sat on 13 amber with 2 on automaton. This is just brutal. They have managed to get the key. And Helix unfortunately doesn't have anything that can answer this because the Horsemen don't really do anything to stop what's going to happen. Oh, that is just...
Wow.
Was able to fight with everything, but makes the choice. And there we go. The key comes in, and Tricity take this 2-1.
Well done to Tricity.
A brutal red game.
Well done to Tricity. I think there's not a lot else to say really at that point.
Yeah.
I mean,
bye.